Hey guys, welcome to our educational video. Here we are going to discuss about geophysics and geodynamics. So this is chapter first of first unit of physics paper 3. So the topics that we are going to study in this particular chapter are introduction to geophysics, then the origin of the earth and solar system, then internal structure of earth, the age of the earth, ocean and continental crust, geomagnetism and paleomagnetism, then sea floor spreading and plate tectonics, seismicity and its instrumentation, and lastly we will see geodynamics of Indian plate. So, starting from introduction to geophysics, geophysics is a natural science which deals with the physical process and properties of the earth and its surrounding space environment by using some quantitative methods for their analysis. And this particular subject is multidisciplinary subject because it is a combination of geology, physics and maths. So this subject characterizes the subsurface, bilateral and vertical mapping of physical property of variation through the technologies. Now the main topic that we are going to discuss is origin of earth and our solar system. So here we will look how our solar system is formed and the theories of formation of the earth. So firstly we will look into the formation of our solar system, how the birth of the solar system has taken place. So firstly our solar system was formed about 4.5 billion years ago from a dense cloud of interstellar gas and dust. The cloud collapsed possibly due to the shock wave of nearby exploding star, which is called as supernova. When this dust cloud collapsed, it formed a solar nebula, which is a spinning, swirling disk of a material. So at the center, the gravity pulled more and more material in, and eventually the pressure in the core was so great so that the hydrogen atom began to combine and form helium and releasing a tremendous amount of energy. And with that, our sun was born and eventually amassed more than 99% of the available matter. So, matter farther out in the disk was also clumping together, and these clumps smashed into one another, forming a larger and larger objects. So, some of them grew big enough for their gravity to shape them into sphere and becoming a planets, dwarf planets, and large moons. So, in other cases, the planets did not form, they form asteroid belt, which is made of bits and pieces of the early solar system, and that could never quite come together into a planet. So, other small leftover pieces became asteroids, comets, meteoroids, and small irregular moons. So this was we have seen of about solar system. Now we will look into the theories of formation of solar system and the theories of formation of earth. So there are two theories which were put forth by some two scientists. So first one was nebular, which is also called as ring theory, or it is also called as Laplacian theory, because this theory was set forth by Laplace. Then second one was spiral or planetesimal hypothesis, and this hypothesis was set forth by Chamberlain and Moulton. So we will look into the first hypothesis, nebular hypothesis, which is set forth by Laplacian. So look into the step by step how nebular hypothesis says that the formation of earth. First point says that earth, planet and the sun originated from nebula. Then this nebula was a large cloud of gas and dust which rotates slowly. Then gradually it cooled and contracted and its speed increased. Then a gaseous ring was separated from nebula, and later the ring cooled and took form a planet. So on the repetition of the process of all other planet came into being, and the central region of this nebula became the sun. So this is how the nebula hypothesis shows that the formation of earth as well as our solar system. But there are some objection, or there are some questions arises on this hypothesis. So the first one is sun should have the greatest angular momentum because of its mass and situated in the center. However, it has only 2% of momentum of the solar system. And the second objection arises is that how the hot gaseous material condense into rings. So these two questions which were not explained by this theory, so that's why this is the limitation of this hypothesis. Then we will go to the second hypothesis, that is spiral or planetesimal hypothesis, which was set forth by Chamberlain and Moulton. So in this particular hypothesis, first, the sun existed before the formation of planet. So this hypothesis says that the sun was existed before all the formation of all the planet, and a star came close to the sun, and because of the gravitational pull of the star, small gaseous bodies were separated from this sun, and these bodies on cooling became small planets, and during rotation the small planets collided and formed big planets. So this is how the planetesimal hypothesis says, but there are also some objection arises on this planetesimal hypothesis. So the first one is that the angular momentum could not be produced by the passing star, and the theory failed to explain how the planetesimal has become one planet. So this is how the questions arises on this particular planetesimal hypothesis was also not explained by this theory. Now the next topic is the internal structure of earth. So here we will look how the internal structure of the earth is. There are four parts which are divided into the internal structure of earth. The first is inner core, second is outer core, third is mantle, and fourth is crust. So the inner core is in center, and it is the hottest part of the earth, which is solid and made up of iron, nickel, with the temperature of up to 5 to 500 degrees Celsius. Then after inner core there is the outer core, which is the layer surrounding to the inner core, and it is liquid layer also made up of iron and nickel. Then after the outer core there is a thickest section which is called as mantle, and it is the thickest section of the earth at approximately 2900 kilometers. The upper part of the mantle is called as asthenosphere, which is made up of semi-molten rock called magma. Then fourth is the crust, which is a surface of the earth, and it is a rock layer forming upper part of the lithosphere, and this lithosphere is split into the tectonic plates, which is oceanic plate and also the continental plate. So this is how the internal structure of the earth is. Then next we will summarize the earth's layer. They have layered interior layer into three parts, that is crust, mantle and core. There are two types of crust, that is oceanic crust and continental crust. Then the mantle has three layers, that is upper, transitional and lower, and also core has two layers, that is outer and inner, whereas outer core is all made up of liquid material and inner core is made up of solid material. So these layers are subdivided on the basis of seismic waves. Now we are going to find age of the earth, how we can calculate the age of the earth. So first, the earth's crust is continually being created, modified and destroyed, and as a result the rocks that record its earliest history have not been found and probably no longer exist. Still, there are some evidences, some on the earth who are 4.5 to 4.6 billion years old, and that the Milky Way galaxy and the universe are older still. So there are some evidences for the distant part of the past of the earth gives us idea about its age. So look into the evidences. First evidence is the oldest rocks on the earth found in western Greenland have been dated at 3.7 to 3.8 billion years in age. So that means the earth formation is also before the 3.7 billion years. Then second evidence is oldest moon rock are formed from lunar highland, which have been dated as 4.4 to 4.5 billion years in age. So that shows that if the moon formation is at before the 4.5 billion years, then Earth and solar system must be older than this. Then third and last and most important evidence is the best age of the earth is based on the time required for the lead isotope in four very old lead ores, that is called as galena, to have evolved from the composition of the lead at a time the solar system formed, as recorded in the Cannon-Diablo iron meteorite. So this model lead age is called as 4.54 billion years. So these were some evidences of for the age of finding the age of the earth. Now look into the oceanic and continental crust. So oceanic crust is found under the oceans and which is about 4 miles thick in most places. A feature unique to oceanic crust is that there are areas known as mid-ocean regions where oceanic crust is still being created. Magma shoots up through gaps in the ocean's floor here. As it cools, it hardens into new rock, which forms a brand new segment of oceanic crust. Since oceanic crust is heavier than continental crust, it is constantly sinking and moving under continental crust. Then, if you look into the continental crust, it varies between 6 and 47 miles in thickness depending on whether it is found. Continental crust tends to much older than oceanic kind, and rocks found on this kind of crust are often the oldest in the world. So examples of such rocks are those in Quebec, Canada, which are estimated to be about 4 billion years old. Now, what is the difference between oceanic and continental crust? Then, first is oceanic crust is dominated by mafic, ultramafic, intrusive igneous rock, whereas continental rocks are dominated by granitic, means felsic, intrusive igneous rocks. Then second is the difference in density has an impact on isostasy of crust floating on the semi-fluid upper mantle, which is called as asthenosphere, with continental crust of about 2.7 gram per cm cube rising or floating above oceanic crust, which what is about 3.5 gram per cm cube. Then third, continental crust is by far the older of the two types. The mantle, oceanic crust and continental crust all have different composition due to process called as partial melting. Fifth and last difference is because continental crust is less dense than oceanic crust, it floats higher on the mantle, just like a piece of a styrofoam floats higher on the water than the piece of a wood does. So this was all about the difference between the oceanic and continental crust. Now look into the geomagnetism. So geomagnetism is the study of the dynamics of the Earth's magnetic field which is produced in outer core, and the Earth's magnetic field is predominantly a geoaxial dipole with north and south magnetic poles located near the geographic poles. The Earth's magnetic field is known to have wandered and flipped in the geologic past, and this wandering has generally been quite slow, around the 9 kilometer a year, and allowing scientists to easily keep track of its position. But since the turn of the century, this speed has increased to 50 kilometer per year. Recently, Earth's magnetic north pole has drifted so fast that the World Magnetic Model, that is a large spatial scale representation of Earth's magnetic field, have had to officially redefine the location of the magnetic north pole much earlier than expected. The Earth's magnetic north pole is quickly moving from the Canadian Arctic towards Russia. So this was all about geomagnetism. Now look into the paleomagnetism. So the study of fossil magnetism in rocks used to determine the past configuration of the continents and to investigate the past shape and magnitude of the Earth's magnetic field. So paleomagnetism is basically the study of very weak magnetizations carried by rocks, sediments and archaeological artifacts. These materials become magnetized at the time they are formed, and so carry a record of the direction and strength of the geomagnetic field at that particular time. Earth has a strong, largely dipolar magnetic field that protects us from the onslaught of the solar wind, guides birds and fish on their migrations, and directs our compasses. Its sources lies in the outer part of the planet's core, where a seething cauldron of iron rich fluid is stirred into complex patterns of the motion by escaping heat and Earth's rotation. Paleomagnetic studies have made key contributions to our understanding of the Earth and its working. The discovery that the polarity of the geomagnetic field has reversed numerous times led the development of the geomagnetic polarity timescale, which is now an essential tool in dating geological materials. So, paleomagnetism also played a central role in confirming continental drift and developing the theory of plate tectonics. So, this is how geomagnetism and paleomagnetism was. So, paleomagnetism is the study of fossil magnetism in rocks and the investigation of the Earth's magnetic field. Frederick Wien and Drummond Matthews studied the pattern of magnetic strips on the ocean floor. So the magma rises from the mantle and cools to make new crust, which preserves a record of the polarity of the Earth's magnetic field. They noticed that the strips were symmetrical on each side of the mid ocean ridges, and this is the same with the edges of the rocks, where the youngest is closest to the ridge and the oldest is farthest away. Now, look into the sea floor spreading. The scientists brought these observations together in the early 1960s to create the seafloor spreading hypothesis. In this hypothesis, hot buoyant mantle rises up a mid ocean ridge, causing a ridge to rise upward, and the hot magma at the ridge erupts as lava that forms new seafloor. So, when the lava cools, the magnetite crystals take on current magnetic polarity, and as more lava erupts, it pushes the seafloor horizontally away from ridge axis, and the magnetic strips continue across the seafloor. Seafloor spreading is the mechanism for Wegener's drifting continents. Convection current with the mantle take the continents on the conveyor belt ride of oceanic crust that over millions of years takes them around the planet's surface. So this was all about the seafloor spreading, how it spreads seafloor. As oceanic crust forms and spreads, moving away from ridge crest, it pushes the continent away from ridge axis. If the oceanic crust reaches a deep sea trench, it sinks into a trench and lost into the mantle. Scientists now know that the oldest crust is coldest and lies deepest in the ocean because it is less buoyant than the hot new crust. Now look into the seismicity. Seismicity is the measure of historical and geographic distribution of earthquake. Seismological study the frequency and intensity of earthquake over the particular area. So seismographs are the instrument used to record the earthquake vibration that travel through the Earth's interior, and the Richter scale measures the largest regular amplitude on the recording, but other magnitude scale measures different parts of the earthquake. The USGS currently reports earthquake magnitude using the moment magnitude scale, though many other magnitudes are calculated for research. So earthquakes are usually caused when underground rock suddenly breaks and there is a rapid motion along a fault. So this sudden release of energy causes the seismic waves that makes the ground shake. So the earthquake is over when the fault stop moving. Seismic waves are generated throughout the earthquake and comparison purposes. So this seismic waves can be measured by using seismometer, and seismometer is an instrument that responds to the ground noises and shaking such as caused by earthquake, volcanic eruption or explosions. So the first seismometer was made in China during the 2nd century. It was invented by Zhang Heng, a Chinese mathematician and astronomer. A simple seismometer sensitive to up down motions of earth, which is like a weight hanging from a spring, both the suspended from a frame that moves along with the motion detected. The relative motion between the weight called the mass and the frame provides a measurement of the vertical ground motion. A rotating drum is attached to the frame and a pin is attached to the weight. So thus the recording any ground motion is seismogram. So this is how the earthquake is recorded in the seismogram. Now look into the geodynamics of Indian plate. About 200 million years ago, when this supercontinent Pangaea, or it is also called as Gondwana, began to break apart and the landmass we today know as India existed as a large island off the coast of Australia, the Indian plate began to move northward, moving as much as 9 cm per year and eventually ramming into the Eurasian plate. The collision marked the beginning of the formation of the Himalaya mountains as the earth's crust buckled the heaved upward. Today, the Indian plate continues to move the northeast at roughly 5 cm per year, pushing the Himalayas higher as the Indian plate under thrust the Eurasian plate. So this is how the geodynamics of Indian plate was, and we have completed geophysics, that is the first chapter of our first unit, and we will meet in next video with new topic. Till then, thank you and bye bye.